Listen up, you ignorant pigs. Put down your crack pipes and your beer bongs. It's time for Holy Divers Night at the Movies. This night's offering from Beyond the Pit is Night of the Living Dead, 1990, the remake, directed by Tom Savini with a screenplay written by George A. Romero, starring Tony Todd as Ben, Patricia Tallman as Barbara, and Tom Towles as Cooper. Let's check it out. So, one of the things I want to say before I get this review underway is thank God for the 90s. Because when they decide to remake a film now, somebody has to be gay. So if they were going to make this film today, the part of Ben would be this gay peeled orange of a black man that they found. He literally looks like a gay Jamaican poem. And if this guy were in the joint, some other bigger black as night slam-a-jam would go up to him and be like, you look like a peeled orange, and I need a piece. And that guy'd be all calling for the guard and be like, you can call for the guard, but I'm still hard. Now give me some. And that's the problem with current year, is that you have too many gay people in films. I don't know what in the hell that is. Can you explain to me what in the hell that is real quick before we get into this movie review? As a matter of fact, if I saw that outside my window, I would run towards it with a crowbar and bash its head in just because I don't want to understand it thinking it was a zombie. Because that is worse than Michael Myers on Halloween. Whatever that is, please, we got to bring back purity and standards to movies in current year.
A bunch of slap-jawed faggots around here.
That aside, this movie really got spit roasted by the critics in the 90s. When this came out, Roger Ebert and Siskel, they hated it. They said this movie was made 22 years ago. It was great. In black and white, the zombies looked even better in black and white. Why did they need to remake it today? The movie got 2 thumbs down from the critics. And usually those 2 critics don't like a horror movie. The horror movie is worth checking out. Now, let's talk about Duane Jones versus Tony Todd as the role of Ben. Both of them are good actors, but Duane Jones on his best day versus Tony Todd on his worst day, Duane Jones doesn't even come close to being as good as an actor. As a matter of fact, I could say Duane Jones is downright terrible compared to Tony Todd. I mean, and I'm not even that brilliant of an actor myself, but Tony Todd is a physically imposing man who is 6.5 feet tall, and when he speaks, he commands a dialogue. And you are always focused on what he's doing. Very similar to Richard Burton, a very famous British actor who played Petruchio in Taming of the Shrew. Richard Burton, really good actor, good with dialogue. Same with Tony Todd. And he's joined up by Patricia Tallman, who's playing the role of Barbara. Now, there is one plot twist. Her brother dies in the graveyard, and he does not make it to the farmhouse. He does not make it to the farmhouse with his sister. She makes it to the farmhouse where she is also attacked by zombies, and that's where you meet Tony Todd's character, Ben. And they sequester in this farmhouse where they are joined by a group of other survivors led by Tom Towles, who is playing the part of Harry Cooper. And you immediately hate Harry Cooper because of how good an actor Tom Towles is. Let's just say that Tom Towles played Otis in Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, and he was good in that movie, but he's even better in this movie. Everything that he's done, very artsy, very top-notch actor from the Midwest there, just really good, and you hate him. You immediately just want to grease that rat fuck son of a bitch right on the spot from the moment you meet him. Because these movies aren't really about the zombies. They're more about man's inhumanity to man during a crisis and their inability to work together. Their total and utter inability to work together during said crisis. If zombies were to happen tomorrow, I would not fear the zombies. I would be okay in terms of fighting off a couple of zombies here and there to defend my homestead. But what I am afraid of is other people. And that holds true for the first movie and for this movie and every zombie movie and zombie show related. It's just a running plot through every zombie movie ever made, every zombie show ever made. Man's inhumanity in man and their inability to work together. Because if people could work together, much like the World War II generation, the zombies would be defeated within an afternoon, and everybody be sipping tea, watching the bodies be shoveled up by excavation equipment, and subsequently put into a hole to be burned. Because if movies have taught me anything, if you've ever seen Them from the 50s, it only took a couple of World War II veterans to go and raid the giant ant nest, and they did all that in an afternoon. Whereas men aren't as strong as they used to be. As a matter of fact, most common soy boys have less grip strength than their World War II or Korean War grandfathers, and it's really quite sad. But this movie kind of takes place in an alternate 90s, and it's just way better in terms of production value. They've got some money behind it, and they've got the great Tom Savini, who is no Stan Winston, but he's a good heir apparent to Ray Harryhausen in terms of making creatures and creature effects. I always wish that Tom Savini and Jim Henson could have worked on monsters together. And that probably would have set the standard for special effects forever. CG, psh, who needs it? We can use CG in this one scene, save ourselves a shit ton of money, and then just use practical effects for the rest of the movie, which would have worked. A lot of practical effects in Ghostbusters. You have some of the best working on those movies, and that's really what make the 80s and 90s very special, are people like Tom Savini or Stan Winston. They were able to make creatures that worked in the moment. And Jim Henson, of course, famous for saying, it doesn't matter to you if the turtles don't look real. What matters is if you believe that they are there. And Tom Savini was really good at that. And the color palettes that he chose for his zombies, his key zombies, they have this like disgusting kind of yellow greenish flesh color. And when you're watching this movie in HD, it holds up. It's amazing how well this remake holds up, and how lucky we were to get it in the 90s. And aside from a few plot twists, which I don't want to spoil, they find themselves fighting for survival and fighting against one another, which is where you don't want to be in any kind of a crisis.
Yeah, sure. You want the best of both worlds. You get caged in up here, you want to be able to run downstairs. That's not the way it's working, pal. You want to get in that cellar, you get in there now, or you can forget it. I'm not boxing myself.
So the first 25 minutes of this film really focuses on Ben and Barbara. It's Ben and Barbara. This is their story. And Patricia Tallman as Barbara really delivers. And she did such a good job with this movie. I was actually surprised that you did not see her in more films in the 90s as kind of a leading action woman, as an heir apparent to the Ripley character from Aliens, which is a very hard character to recreate and reproduce, but Tom Savini is able to do that. Very few directors can do that. Paul W.S. Anderson, he was never able to make a strong female character. It doesn't matter how many movies and action sequences you put Mila Jovovich in, you are not going to have an heir apparent to the Ripley character. However, Savini, way better director than Paul W.S. Anderson any day of the week, and Paul W.S. Anderson was given big money to make that AVP film. He also did the Resident Evil movies, and let's just say he's a mediocre director. Because one of the things you do as a director is you never cast your real-life girlfriend in any of the films. Now, you can cast her as a minor role, like she's the gas station tenant, and she has a couple of lines, paper or plastic, or she's the voice on a telephone call or something like that. A very minor role, but you never cast them as leads. You never cast your girlfriend as lead. And Patricia Tallman delivers. She has this very slow progression from utter hysteria to killing her first zombie, to finding a pair of boots, to finding a pair of pants, to finding a gun, and then getting her crap together collectively. She gathers all of her crap up, much like Ripley during the hive scene when Gorman just sort of like has this aneurysm and doesn't know what to do, and she takes charge and drives into the hive to save the patrol of Marines that are inside the hive. And without that, you didn't have a movie. And one thing that this movie got spit roasted for was once you assemble the entire cast, she's looking outside the window and she makes a comment, "They're just so slow. We could literally walk away." And that is true. If they walked, and that's one of the things that does hurt the original, and it's one of the things that does hurt this movie, is that the zombies are slow and they're not really a threat, and if they do walk away, you have no movie. But you also have Ben's character saying, we don't want to get stranded out someplace where we don't have any cover, and there's a mob of those things around. And that's actually the kind of the threat. Now, as far as zombies go, I am a fan of the slow zombie. I'm not a fan of the fast, rip your face off zombie, nothing you can do about it, and they can bash their way through walls, climb up ladders, all of that World War Z stuff, just crap. It's all crap. I think that recently dead, reanimated corpses would move very slow, and in a group, they would be very formidable and very dangerous because they do keep on coming unless you destroy the brain, which is the common rule. But, I think a dismemberment is just as good. One of the things that I liked about the Resident Evil games is if you shoot the zombie 5 times, it goes away. Good enough. Good enough. You don't need to have a headshot every single time. I think that if you nip the spinal cord or something with a bullet, it goes away, zombie falls down because there's nothing holding it together. But I didn't make the rules. So if I had to compare this zombie movie to another zombie movie in terms of delivering and everything, I'm going to compare it to Train to Busan. Train to Busan didn't have over-the-top gore, it didn't have over-the-top violence, but it did have fast-moving zombies, which I am not a fan of. However, the movie was a masterpiece. And if had that movie been an American film, made in the time when zombies hadn't reached saturation, it would have been a perfect 10. The only problem is that movie was made in Korea, and you have to watch the subtitles, and it was delivered at a time when zombies had reached saturation. So if you're looking for a good zombie movie this Halloween, I gotta recommend Tom Savini's Night of the Living Dead, the remake. Simply because it's got a lot of those good classic horror movie elements, a lot like The Changeling, a lot like The Conjuring. Really good, true horror movies, like The Exorcist, don't need to resort to sleazy nudity, they don't need to resort to over-the-top violence and gore to be scary. So all you have to do is kind of put George, a lot like the Exorcist 3, you have George C. Scott carrying that movie. What you need are really good actors in that moment in the time. So Tony Todd delivers, Patricia Tallman delivers, Tom Towles delivers, and it's the acting in this movie is just times 10 what the 1968 version was. Hands down. And aside from the few plot twist endings that I don't want to spoil, they gather in this house, they go from crisis to an explosion to fighting amongst themselves, and you have Barbara who just progresses in one scene.
Is he dead? No! Is he dead? You're all seeing this! Is he dead?
Stop it! You're losing it, girl. You are losing it!
You think so?
As she started shooting that zombie, I immediately believed that she is going to live and find a way out of this. And of course, she's the one who walks away from the farmhouse. And that's kind of where this movie ends. And we know what happens to the original Ben in the 1968 version. He looks outside the window and they accidentally shoot him as a zombie. And the movie kind of ends on a bummer. And that's kind of a George A. Romero twist. It's like, oh, the zombies and the bikers broke into the mall and everything's kind of going to shit now. And it's people fighting other people, getting other people killed by zombies. And that's been every zombie movie from the 80s up until now. I, for one, have got to give this movie a 5 skull rating. I selected this movie personally because it's just one of those good Halloween staple zombie movies. You're getting Tom Savini's makeup effects in full color. They hold up brilliantly today, and you're also getting just really good acting ability out of the three primary stars. So I hope you check it out this Halloween. And in any case, as you know, YouTube has many features you can use to interact with me. You can like the video, dislike the video, comment, or subscribe. But until I see you again, know that we'll have a new Holy Diver show next week. And keep fighting, keep playing, keep watching horror movies. Happy Halloween, and stay metal, my friends.
Even you, puppy dog. Hey, you need to grow a sack!